Welcome to part 2 of our 4-part series on refurbishing your very own whiskey or wine barrel. In the last video, in step 1, we talked about cleaning and prepping the whiskey and wine barrel hoops. We also talked about the possibility of painting the barrel hoops after this step. In this video, we're going to talk all about sanding the barrel. There is some personal preference in determining how much of the barrel you want to sand. One extreme would be to sand the barrel down to entirely fresh wood. When stained and sealed or oiled, this would give the cleanest, most pristine and refined appearance. This is also the most time and effort to achieve. On the other hand, a light hand sand to remove any surface dust may be all that you want to do, and that works too. This will allow some of the barrel's original character to show through to the final product. The long and short of it is, whatever level you sand the barrel to in this step will show through the stain, the seal, or the oil to the final refurbished barrel. Next, let's talk about the tools for sanding. Our go-to sander is a belt sander. The belt sanders are designed to remove material from wood. That's what we're looking to do when sanding barrels, especially with the whiskey barrels. Another option is to use an orbital sander. An orbital sander will work perfectly fine for a wine barrel. It will also work well for a whiskey barrel, but it'll take a little bit more time to get the same effect that we get by using the belt sander. If you don't have a belt sander or an orbital sander on hand, but you have a palm sander, this may help as well. This will remove some of the surface dust, but won't remove a lot of the heavy material that you would be able to remove with a belt sander or an orbital sander. When sanding a whiskey or wine barrel, we like to lay the barrel on its side. That way we can use the weight of the sander to our advantage during the sanding process. Because we sand so many barrels, we have some custom stands made to help us in this process. A good substitute to having a barrel stand is to just lay the barrel on its side on the ground. Use a couple pieces of wood to wedge underneath the barrel to hold it in place. In doing so, the barrel is secure enough for sanding. One other option you have is whether or not you want to remove the interior hoops of the barrel before sanding. Removing the interior hoops can be helpful in that you can sand entirely where the hoop was. By leaving the hoops there, you can only get so close with the sander. However, removing the hoops takes some extra tools, some extra time, and really it takes some practice to get the hang of. So for this tutorial, I would recommend just leaving the hoops on. If you want to see how to remove the hoops, we'll have a separate video to show you how to do that. Before we get started with sanding, you want to make sure you're in a well-ventilated area or outside. You also want to make sure you have eye protection, hearing protection, and respiratory protection, such as a dust mask or a respirator. When we sand a wine barrel, we aim to get down to entirely fresh, clean wood. We start with a 60 grit sandpaper and work our way up to 120 grit. The key here is to keep the sander moving. If you leave it in one place, especially with the belt sanders, it can start to dig into the wood. Allow the weight of the sander to do the work. Continue to sand the entire barrel this way. For the whiskey barrels, we aim to expose most of the underlying wood while allowing some of the darker original appearance of the barrel to show through. For these barrels, we start with a 40 grit sandpaper, then a 60, then 80, then 120 grit. In a similar manner, keep the sander moving so it does not create any divots in the barrel. And about an hour later, this is what you get. This is the fully sanded wine barrel and a fully sanded whiskey barrel. As you can see with the wine barrel, we sanded entirely down to fresh wood, where on the whiskey barrel you may be able to see that we left some of those darker elements of the initial barrel there so that shines through to the final product. The more you sand the barrel, the cleaner and newer your refurbished barrel will look. The less you sand the barrel, the more the barrel will retain its original character and appearance. This is hard work, isn't it? Well, it'll be worth all the effort when in the next video you see these barrels come to life when we add some stain to the barrels and finish it off with a coat of sealer. We'll see you there.